Welcome to Strategy Battle Games, another GBHL YouTube video. You're here, your host GBHL Damian and Mr. Dave Fredericks. How you doing, sir?
Hello. Very good.
Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
This is Dave Fredericks, also known as UK Freddy Bear.
Yes.
You may recall. Also known as Flame.
Yes.
From Shadow Flame. And any others?
Probably none that we can,
go on
to. I've got some fire service nicknames, but we won't go into those.
And we are here to basically have a chat with Mr. Dave, because Mr. Dave.
Mr.
Like
Dave.
that? Keep that.
That's another one. Mr. Dave.
Because I think it's fair to say have you been on the channel?
Yeah, you interviewed me at the first Stockport.
Oh yeah, and Little Army in it. Yes.
My Isengard Little Force.
That's right. But you've probably been your ratio of being mentioned on the channel to being on the channel is probably one of the worst.
Yeah.
In that you crop up in almost all the videos.
I suppose a lot of people don't even know who I am.
Oh, exactly.
Like,
but no longer.
Who's this guy he keeps talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're probably best known as to subscribers anyway as Half a Shadow and Flame, who are our channel sponsors.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And you obviously, I'm sure, you'll probably chat about that maybe towards the end of the video in the chronology that we've got planned. But we thought it'd be nice to have a chat with Dave about his, I don't know, life in sculpting, his journey, and we've got loads of Dave's awesome models here, which we're going to have a look at throughout the video, and hopefully, we haven't really planned this, but Dave's going to kind of chat us through.
We're just winging it.
Yeah, I don't know not how to convert, but where he started from and early beginnings.
Roots of sculpting.
Yeah, the tiny little acorns that lead to giant trees.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see for yourself. Hopefully, we'll be able to zoom in on some of these. And,
and hopefully I'll be able to edit it together.
Well, look, yeah. That's it. So, it's all in the editing. Okay, so shall I?
Do you want to go?
We'll kickstart then.
Yeah.
So, I've always been quite artistic. Going right back to when I was at school. Did GCSE art, which involved a little bit of sculpting as well. I did a project on American football, of all things, because that was a big part of my life as well. Spent 25 years playing at an amateur level on that. So it was very focused on that because it was what I was into. So a lot of the figures were, it was all clay based.
So what was the project?
Oh, it's just the project was around football in general. So there was some still lifes of all the equipment and some sculpting of the figures. It was sort of banging together, and yeah, it was quite interesting. I bet you don't know. Well, do you know what grade I got? Have a guess.
Have a guess.
Yeah.
At what level was it? GCSE. I'm gonna say A star.
No, I didn't get it.
No, because otherwise I'm just gonna hurt your feelings.
I got
no D.
No, I got a C. I got a C in art.
I got a C for GCSE art.
Did you?
Yeah. Don't do any
Which
sculpting.
was probably about right, I think, for the level.
So were the figures you were doing? Were they?
They were a lot bigger than this.
Bigger?
So we're talking 6 to 8 inches probably, because it was clay.
That's more than enough though.
Yeah. And at that time I didn't really know too much about wargaming in general.
Okay.
I knew of it because I was quite into Dungeons and Dragons. They're all role playing stuff. So I wasn't unfamiliar with figures in a whole. I just wasn't really into going in, buying and painting them. So it wasn't until really Lord of the Rings films came out.
2001.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That kind of sparked, because I've always been into sort of fantasy, Lord of the Rings in particular, which is probably my second biggest love behind a big Star Wars fan. So I was always a massive...
Just say your wife.
Yeah, okay, family aside, but when it comes to sort of...
Star Wars before Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it was my first love, see, because I grew up on that generation.
You must be the right age to have seen it at the cinema.
Yeah, and when I first saw Fellowship of the Ring, it gave me that same feeling that I'd had when I first went to see the original Star Wars. It's that sort of blow you away, sort of mad effect that it has on your life when you go away from the cinema. Of course, shortly after that, we had Battle Games in Middle Earth. I saw an advert for that, and I thought that's something I could see myself getting into.
So were you painting Dungeons and Dragons? Were you doing any painting?
I wasn't doing any. We had one of the guys who was quite into that. He was, he's into the Warhammer sort of side of things, and he came up with some figures. We didn't even ask him where he got them from.
Yeah.
He'd just come along with the little figures, and we used those.
But
a lot of them were
more
the card ones that you used to get in the box. So.
But you were more turned up to play the game rather than.
Yeah, I was all about the fun part, and the game inside, and making the fun decisions that go along with that.
And then Battle Games of Middle Earth.
Battle Games of Middle Earth. That's how I got into the Lord of the Rings range. Obviously, that went on for how many years did that go on?
It's like 90. I think there's 90 issues and
every,
it's fortnightly.
Every 2 weeks. So yeah, I subscribed to that. So what was issue one? Goblins, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Sprue and Moira Goblin.
So the first Lord of the Rings models I got was the Sprue and Moira Goblins, and I painted them up with the 4 paints that came with it.
Yeah.
And I was baffled at how the ones in the magazine were so much better than the ones that I had.
Have you gone back to it recently though? Because we looked through them and they're all
the painting guides are rubbish.
Yeah.
But the photographs,
right?
Because they, some of the photographers with all the hills in the background and stuff. I thought, well, that's really good. There's nothing like this painting guide that they've given me.
But I think they did it deliberately. We were saying this, that if you look, the goblins are awful, but then by the time you get to edition 60, the painting's really good.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think it's very clever, because I remember a lot of, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, GW stores were accused at one point that the staff had to get paint worse stuff because the stuff in the windows was too intimidating.
Yeah,
which I think was crazy.
Yeah.
But then the idea is that they said, if you've never done this before, your goblins should look something like this.
Mm.
If you keep painting along with us every 2 weeks, you'll get to this standard. And it's the same with the scenery. That first horrible ruin,
they were terrible.
by the end of it, you make the mill.
Did you ever make any of that?
No, I didn't. I dropped out of it by then. I was in it because that was Battle Games of Middle Earth started when Two Towers came out, or halfway through that year, and I kind of was into it for the first year of Fellowship, and then dropped out for about 10 years.
Yeah, there was one on there with a Gondor fountain, which I
think Tom's made that.
Yeah, I did that, and I also made these little foam. So I made the fountain core. It was a big circle, and it looked half decent. It had a white tree in there as well. And I did about half a dozen and sold them on eBay. Did quite well.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
I saw all the scenery go on there. It went about 2 years ago. The actual scenery.
Yeah.
Someone obviously had it and was flogging it, and I was after the Edoras walls, and it went. I think my limit was like £100 at the time or so. And it went for like 140 or something.
Right.
But someone obviously, because they had the whole range and it was exactly the same. And it was obviously the editor maybe or whoever.
Yeah, but that was my way in to the hobby. Obviously, the Battle Games of Middle Earth, so you can get White Dwarf as well, and also here's a list of stores, sort of, so you can go in, and that sort of got me through the doors of Games Workshop for the very first time, really. And so then it was, that's it, I'm in it now. And that was many years ago, was that 15 years ago, so here we are. Since then, got the whole lot.
Yeah, so you're one of, I know, not many people in the world who knows for sure that they have every model now.
Yeah, I spent about 3 days going through my collection, making sure, and to my horror, there was one figure that I didn't have.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was a really unusual one. It was one of the old Lorien bowmen.
Oh yeah, the metal ones.
There were 4.
They're gorgeous.
I only thought there were 3 because I had my son. He was reading out Miniman's Guide, and he goes, "Lorien bowman." I said, "Yeah, I've got 2 of each. I think of all 3 of those." He goes, "Well, there's 4." I was like, "No, there's not 4. It's here." I was like, "Oh no!"
That's out
of production now. So luckily, they're quite abundant on eBay still. So I managed to pick one up for
amazing.
For about £4.
It's the thing that you've got, because you've got things like the Uruk Captain, right?
Yeah.
The 2-handed axe and the Mordor Uruk. And if you've got those, but you don't have like the Lorien bowman.
I know. Well, to be honest, I was glad it was that way around.
Yeah.
Because it cost me a lot less to finish it. So
how long? When did you start? I mean, there must be a point between having 12 goblins and deciding you want every model they've ever made. Like, at what point did you realise that you were, psychologically in trouble?
Well, I was doing quite well up until about, I don't know, 2010 maybe, and then I sort of hit a bit of a wall and I slowed right down. And I think a lot of people got a bit irritated with the way Games Workshop was going, their business plan. And I became quite disillusioned with it all. And I thought, actually, I'm not buying anymore. And I kind of toned down my hobbying in general. We'll get onto that again in a minute, because that's when Kev helped me out and gave me my mojo back. So because I lost it. I had lost it. I wasn't. I wasn't doing any sculpting. I wasn't doing, well, rarely paint anyway. But I wasn't buying the models. I still had plenty, but I thought I've got enough now for what I want to do, so that'll be it. And it wasn't until I got involved with Kev that he got me going again. But what got me converting?
Got involved with Kev and he got you going.
Yeah, it did. He jump started me.
So when you then you got, if you got into it 15 years ago, you're now a very happily married man for over 20 years.
Yes.
Was that an interesting discussion when you start playing with toy soldiers?
To be honest, my wife was quite for it, because before that, obviously Star Wars, and I've also got a massive vintage Star Wars collection, which I have slowly sold a few pieces off.
Old toys?
Yeah, all the old toys. Well, not just toys, I got posters and
my cousin
plates and all sorts.
financed, I think entirely financed his wedding by selling his Star Wars.
I have got it insured for a tidy sum, just in case something happens to it.
The Star Wars collection?
Yeah, but it took up a lot of space. And when these little figures come out, that's how I sold it to my wife. I said, look at these, they're an inch high, how much space could these possibly take up? And she was like, yeah, fair enough.
Didn't know what she was getting herself into.
No, now.
3,000 figures later.
It's like, really? Do you need any more? Oh, well, actually, yeah, because I need to pad this army out a little bit more, even though I've already got there.
Yeah, we all know that feeling.
Yeah, we've all been there. Although it has tailed, since productivity stopped from Games Workshop, I've managed to save quite a bit of money, because I've not been constantly.
I was saying, I don't know if I said this in a hobby vlog or plans or something, but it's obviously very exciting that they're getting back into it.
Yeah.
But I was almost happy for them to be done and say, you know what, the game is there, the rules are fine, I can now paint through my backlog. Yeah. And now you kind of go, they're going to release.
I had real mixed emotions about it, because once I picked up that last wave, with Radion Eagle and
the White Council.
Yeah, the White Council. And I thought, well, at the time I obviously didn't realise I'd forgotten my Wood Elf, but I thought, well, yes, that's it. I've got it in, and what we're going to do now? So,
paint them?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have slowly been starting to try and get more painting done.
So you said when you went free backlog, you worked out you had about 3,000 figures. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it's about 3,400.
3,400 figures.
And I've probably got about 450 painted. So there's still a way to go.
Do you have any idea how many are in the range? Did you work that out when you were doing the stop shows?
No, I didn't.
Because you said you've got lots of duplicates.
How many single poses there are of stuff?
Was that obviously the 12 plastic wood elves would be 12.
Yeah.
Rather than a plastic wood elf, but
I haven't done that. Somebody should do that.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Act on 39.
How many different
models are? That's actually Ryan. Don't do that. That's a tie-break question of a quiz.
Yeah.
But then no, Ryan, do that, because we need to know the answer, and just tell me. That's what we do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. See
what I mean?
If you just had one of everything.
Yeah. If you've got 3,000, you've got everything, but you've got some armies, then you're getting the plastic boxes like twice. So maybe it's about 1,500 or something.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably over 1,000. I would have thought.
Yeah.
I reckon between 1,000 and 2,000. Yeah. What's your money? I don't know. I don't want to give it away too much. So anyway, let's rewind and we go back. So early on in the range, it was quite limited.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had a few goblins, you had a few Last Alliance, the elves and the Numenor stuff.
And then lots of poses of Aragorn and the hobbits.
Yes, lots of hero poses. But that's sort of how I first got into converting stuff, is just to make the armies look a bit different. Then I think the Last Alliance elves were my amongst my first conversions, and the Numenor stuff. That was the first sprue that I had a crack at.
Right. So we've got some of those.
Yeah, we've got a few here.
So they are the plastic Numenor guy and the Last Alliance Elf.
Yep.
And what were they? Are they head swaps?
Basically, yeah. I did head swap with Elrond, I think, for the sword guy, and I hollowed out the helmet of the original figure and just stuck it on the ground. And the Numenor guy, I did the same thing with the helmet, but I gave him Gamling's head.
Okay.
So I had a couple of Gamlings.
Gambling on foot, is that?
Yes, it would have been, yeah. I also, this was the Bowman one was a little bit more extravagant. I tried shaving the bow off, and you can see how bad it is because it's quite rough, the back of the cloak.
Right, okay.
So at the time I wasn't really familiar with putty, so it's kind of stick the head on, or I put the head
what, the
swaps.
quiver?
Yeah, you see where the quivers come off here.
Got
You
ya.
can have a
Yeah,
look. Have a look later on, but you can see I've just carved the grooves in rather than putting putty over the top, as I would do nowadays. It's just literally been hacked into the plastic.
Yeah.
So that's quite telling. I mean, it's not a bad little conversion for its time.
Sure, a lot of people still be very happy with it.
Yeah.
So when was this then? Was this 2002, 2003, or
Probably.
did you wait a bit?
I reckon about 2004.
Okay.
And I sort of started to get. That was when I first discovered the online forums, and that was the Last Alliance and One Ring.
Which you obviously became a very big part.
Yeah, I got well involved with that, and that did cause a bit of friction with the other half.
Oh really?
Because I spent all the time I wasn't with the miniatures, I was online on the forums, reading all the posts, looking at all the pictures, getting inspired, posting my own stuff.
It's a time sink. There's no doubt about
it. It's very absorbent. Because everyone gets spare time, and what you choose to do with it, is up to each person. It's when you're starting to the balance between your spare time and the time you should be spending on other things starts to overlap, and then it gets a bit shady. But so I got quite involved with the Last Alliance more so than the One Ring, which has flipped around these days. And I've submitted quite a lot of articles over the years.
About converting, is that all?
Yeah, about sculpting and converting. I did a painting guide as well, which wasn't brilliant, but it was funny enough, it was about how to paint fire, which I thought, I know a bit about that.
As we said, we haven't said you're a firefighter. I don't think
we've done it on this since. Well, did I mention it? I might have mentioned it earlier.
You're a firefighter?
I am a firefighter. I even got the fire.
Yeah.
Mug.
Which brought his own mug, like that. That's dedication.
I've been a firefighter for about 10 years. So after I got into the hobby, but since then. And from there, I became quite high up because there was an hierarchy, because there was a ranking system on the Last Alliance, and you used to gain stars for people voting on your articles. And I became one of 5 people that had, I think it was captain. Standard bearer, a few standard bearers. I can't remember how many stars that was. It was 5,000. I can't remember.
Was that like likes, the stars then? So
it's basically like the equivalent of a Facebook like, I guess. Or
someone
the
approving
article.
something you've done.
So that was quite nice. And it was a shame when it all crashed and came to a sudden end. And a lot of people migrated over to the One Ring, which saw a massive increase in traffic.
When are we talking about now?
How long ago would that have been? 2009?
I was going to say it's at least 5 years since the Last Alliance.
Yeah.
So what wasn't it?
So kind of picked up on there. But slowly, as the films sort of died away, the memory of them. Yeah. And as we mentioned, becoming a bit disillusioned with Games Workshop and the way things were going. Some of the models I wasn't keen on, like the Don Amroth stuff, the big helmets.
I think that some of the featured stuff's nice, but the Knights, I've always said they look like silver helms to me, like silver helm. They're a bit too fantasy.
Which is weird because I kind of like them now. It's funny how time warps your perspective of things. So things kind of died down. But I still had my, work in progress threads on there.
And you were a moderator by this point, probably?
Not at the time. I wasn't. It wasn't until I started getting a lot more active again, along with Kev as well.
Because on there your username's UK Freddy Bear.
I am UK Freddy Bear.
And the Last Alliance as well.
Yes.
So that became your...
I've always had the same username.
The slight disruption of the video was Tom Harrison arriving and ruining a video, just like he does with the Planter every week.
Yeah, apparently so.
So you were saying that 2010 things had died down a bit, and you're a UK Freddy Bear. That's what
yeah.
Where's that come from?
Where did the name come from? Well, there's a part story to this and a long story. So basically, obviously I live in the UK.
I
did that. Yeah.
Freddy.
As far as I know, there's no US Freddy Bear either. I think it's quite unique to the. But there were Freddy Bears about.
Okay.
So I thought I need to make myself.
Obviously, Freddy Bear.
Yeah. So I'm UK Freddy Bear. Freddy Bear. My nickname when I was younger was Freddy, because obviously my surname is Fredericks, so that was kind of shortened to Freddy. And Bear was because I like the Chicago Bears NFL team. There's also a longer version of that. It's back when I was at school. One of my younger former girlfriends called me Freddy Bear. That was her nickname. My little Freddy Bear. So that's the cute version. But I normally I do.
I like that one.
Yeah, do that.
That was good.
But I made it work a different way.
Does Deb know that you're that you've hung on to this? Like,
yeah, I don't think she watches this show. Well, I don't know. She may do. But.
From an ex-flame.
Yeah.
Well, no. Shall we trade ridiculous stories like that?
Oh, right, go on.
I had an ex-girlfriend, and this is when I was like 16 or something, which might sound crazy now that I didn't have a phone, but back in '98 it wasn't. And I bought my first phone off her old phone. So it was pay as you go. So it had the PIN code was her birthday, because it was her phone.
Okay.
That then stayed as my PIN code, and then we split up. I got new phones. I was used to that being my PIN code. It stayed the same. Got together with Emma. At some point, she got used to unlocking my phone with that. She then had that PIN code as her PIN code for her phone.
Does she know?
I think she knows. Yeah. So her PIN code is my ex-girlfriend's birthday.
Really? Oh, nice.
But yeah.
It's funny how things work out.
Yeah. So that's where UK Freddy Bear came from.
Yep. So people knew the name on the boards. Obviously, didn't know me by face. Never know. Back then nobody sort of met up. I mean, we had a tournament scene, but I didn't really go to any of the tournaments back then when it was in its heyday. Funny enough. I really wasn't into that side of things. I was more into the creative side.
So at that point, where were you on the? Were you still just doing conversions for yourself, or were you?
No, the first thing I had a go at from scratch was the Watcher in the Water. There was a white dwarf.
Yeah.
I can't remember the number. 281 or 2. I'm guessing.
That's pretty.
I don't know. That could be completely wrong, but for some reason that sticks in my head. And it had one of the writers had sculpted the head of the Watcher and the tentacles.
For the 8 tentacles on the bases, it was the head in the middle.
Yeah, because you couldn't even get the tentacles then. They came out a lot later. So they'd done the whole lot, and they were on little 40mm bases. I thought that's really good. I need to do that. So I made my own. It came out quite well, I thought, and it got quite good feedback on the forums.
But that's from nothing then. So just doing little conversions and then sculpting the Watcher head. That was the jump. Yeah,
I mean, I'd progressed slightly more from head swaps and weapon swaps from there. I'd gone a bit more adventurous, I suppose, trying to put like hoods on, cloaks, which, to be honest, weren't brilliant because I hadn't learned the techniques properly back then. It was all sort of kind of suck it and see, really, sort of, in the early days. But I thought that was something I could have a go at because it's just a monster. There's no, there's no chainmail, there's no clothes. There's not much of a face. It's all kind of abstract, and I gave it my best shot, and it came out pretty well. But I forgot to bring it today, ironically.
Did you start from scratch, or did you go and look at videos or tutorials or get any advice?
Well, no, in the article it was quite descriptive, and it showed him how he built it up from plastic card and go over the top. I did it slightly different because I didn't have any plastic card. I used foam core, and expanded polystyrene as a base, and then just went over the top of that. And of course the tentacles were just over a bent piece of wire. Yeah. So as you would make an armature for anything. But yeah, I was really pleased how that came out, and it got some good reviews. Did an article for it on the Last Alliance, and that kind of spurred me on from there really. People encouraged me to get a bit more creative, and I had a go at a man figure which was Theoden, because at that time Games of Middle Earth was
2010.
No, we're going back. 2005.
Okay, right, got it.
Battle Games of Middle Earth was still going.
Yep.
And there was a magazine. Well, what number was that? The scenario was. Oh, what was it? Restore the King.
Inside Mediceld.
Inside Mediceld, there was a little mini game. Mini game.
Yeah.
Where you had to.
It's about 45, 50, somewhere like that.
And they're up against the Rohan Guard.
Yeah. The Rohan campaign's around 50, I think, in Battle Games of Middle Earth.
I reckon it was 51.
Yeah.
Again,
I've got it in there. I
don't know. I'm not just pulling these out of the hat. They could be completely wrong. But
yeah, you had to. It was like a board game, wasn't it? There was
there was a little throne. You had to get up the end and save Theoden. I thought, there's no mini for that. No miniature. So I figured that is one I could possibly have a go, because he's seen his big lumpy coat and
there he is.
Yeah, he's in on his little throne. And to be honest, looking at it now, it's very lumpy and not very well defined, but
it's a lot better than anything I could do.
I was quite pleased with it at the time.
And is that completely from scratch? You've done everything on that?
I used an EBOB armature, so it had like the skeleton and a little face and stuff, and you just sort of.
Oh, what? So that was sold as a sculpting base?
It was a sculpt, on EBOB's website. He sold sculpting tools.
That's very cool.
And he sold armatures,
right.
And useful things to help beginner sculptors, which I found very helpful. I got quite friendly with him back in the day. He was quite well known on the forum boards as well. Back then he was very active. Not so much these days, unfortunately. But still in the sculpting world. I think this is his main business now. But he lived just down the road from me as well, because I'm from Southampton. I don't know if we mentioned that, but that's where I am, right down the bottom of the country. And he lived just down the road in Portsmouth, which is probably about 20 miles, so not far in the car. And we had a couple of games. Back then, he came up to me and we played on the boards that I had lying around, and he even brought his own boards, which are miles better than mine, because he was a lot more established than I was at the time. I was such a novice then, but he gave me a lot of invaluable information about sculpting.
Right.
He had his tutorials on his own website and obviously his articles on the forum boards. Which I found very useful, and so that helped me immensely, I suppose, grasp the concept of technique.
Okay.
So with all the goodwill in the world, unless you know the techniques, you can't really achieve the results that you're looking for, unless you know how to do them. Same with anything, I suppose.
I've thought that whenever I've been, because my grease stuff is awful. But whenever I've been doing grease stuff, I'm always like, I think part of the reason this doesn't look any good is because I'm probably not doing it right. Yeah. I constantly think that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there are certain ways to do things. Having said that, there are sculptors that will sculpt a face completely different to someone else who'll sculpt a face. Some people do it in one go, some people do it in stages. So there's no concrete set in stone way of doing things, but there are recognised,
Yeah, of course.
ways to do stuff.
So with this Theoden, is that the one you did? Is this the only one that exists of him?
No. There is. That's one of the articles. That is the original one.
Right. Okay.
I feel how light it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Theoden was the first model that people were keen to have one of their own.
Right. Okay. A reproduction of it.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about that sort of side of things, but I went online and I discovered a website called, it's run by a chap called Alec Taranti. I think that's how you pronounce it. But he does all casting supplies, does metals, the rubbers, and everything you need. And he also sells a kit, which he still does. At the time it was about £50. I'm not sure what the price is now. But it's basically a starter set for home casting.
Right.
And it's how to sort of mould your own figures and get them cast up in white metal. So I tried that, gave that a whirl, and I did a bit of home casting, and we did. It was very limited, I made not many, half dozen, because it was quite limited the amount of metal that come with the kit. But yeah, they went quite well.
Must be quite rewarding. That kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, looking for trying to profit severely from it, because at the time I was just pleased that people wanted
your stuff,
something that I'd made, and it was very. I don't think I made very much at all. Because if you factor in the price of the kit, it was £50, and I only made. I think I made half a dozen, and I sold them for 10. So I probably lost money because I think I sold them.
But I got you off the ground, I guess.
£6, I think they were. But yeah, so there are a few lucky people that have one. They're out there somewhere. But that was that. That was my sort of way into first sort of producing things that people were interested in. So from there, about the same time, Games Workshop brought out their Ents.
Right. Yeah. Here it comes.
Right, so
the metal one.
The metal one. Yeah. Treebeard had already been out.
Yeah.
And Treebeard, I think, is quite a good model in all respects. It's, it looks a lot like the character, and it's a very characterful sculpt, I think. So I was pleased with that. So when Games Workshop brought out their metal Ent, when I first saw it, I couldn't even make out what was the face. I was like, what is that? Honestly,
we have it here. Do you want to?
It is. Well,
do you want to slide it over and
yeah, this is. I mean, this is mine. Obviously, I had to buy one in the end for completist purposes.
Yeah.
But that's the one I'm talking about.
Cool.
Do you want it?
Yeah, I'll stick him down there and I'll.
So.
Where's he in? There he goes that way.
And I thought.
There we go. I'll film him.
Well, that Ent is
there
not what I was expecting at all. It's.
And this is after the films, so you're saying that doesn't look like the Ents in the film?
Well, Two Towers was, and it is a lot of people's favourite. I just love the.
Emma's least favourite.
Is it really?
Yeah, madness. I think madness.
Oh, okay, there you go. But, and I love the whole Ent moot scene, which is, in the books it was one of my favourites, and I was expecting kind of more in the way of a range from Games Workshop. And when this little beauty came out, I was quite disappointed, to put it mildly. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go, and I think even with my limited skills, I can do a better job than what that is. Because I just think it lacks the characteristics is what made each individual in the films. And, whilst the stuff that I've done since then doesn't, obviously for legal reasons, doesn't replicate them
how they look
in the films.
Yeah,
I tried to give each one of mine a character.
Maybe as if it could have come from the film.
Yeah, so it could, so you could use it for that.
As we were talking about beforehand, and I quite like that model, the metal one, but it's very much like it looks like a wood spirit. I
thought it was very out of character with the whole Lord of the Rings range.
Yeah,
because they're very realistic, figures. And I just thought, where's that come from?
That's not a very realistic giant
It's come from
tree.
Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, it shares a lot of kind of
It's like
proportions
like the
and styles
treekins.
with the treekin from. I think they came. I actually think the treekin they came out for the army book about 2005.
Right.
Like the treekin probably because
I imagine it's probably
the
the same
first
sculptor.
Wood Elf book was like 97, 98, and that was where the dryads came from and the Durthu tree man. But the treekin
a lot better, I think.
Yeah, the treekin were somewhere in that 2005, 2006, and that looks like a scaled up treekin to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You can Google Wood Elf treekin for that and see. But I still quite liked it as on its own as one of a number of ends. I think it's quite good.
Yeah.
But I suppose as to give yourself a chance to sculpting, I suppose the appeal of an N as well is that you don't need to worry too much about things like proportions.
No,
and
that's
likenesses
right.
and stuff.
You get a bit of a free rein to sort of go mad on it. As long as it looks fairly humanoid, and tree-like, it's quite open to interpretation, really.
So then came the tree giants.
Then came the tree giants. I did the batch first.
It's this guy,
That was 2007.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the one.
I've got him. I've got 2 of the 3, I think.
And he went down quite well. 2007. Everyone said, "Yeah, great."
It is fantastic. I mean,
why don't you cast that and we'll all buy one? It's like, really? I said that. Casting a little figure like Thelin was relatively easy. I thought, there's no way I can do that with a home casting kit. It's too big for a start, and it's complicated. I wouldn't know where to start.
Because you have to cut them up. Once you've sculpted it,
well, that one I didn't, because I was so naive about the whole setup. I asked Bob. I said, "Bob, you've been selling your own models for a while now. How do you get them cut, and who do you go and see?" Because I knew he did it externally, and he told me about a company called Griffin Molds, who specialise in casting up miniatures for the war games industry. They've got loads of different clients from all different manufacturers, and they do quite good business. So I got emailing the good chaps at Griffin Molds, and I sent them a picture of what I had, and they said, "Yeah, not a problem, send it to us and we'll sort it out." So that went off to Griffin, and they cut that one up. And
it must be quite traumatic, isn't it, sending off your model and asking someone to cut it up?
But not really, because they know what they're doing, and you want it to be the best it can be. It's no point in me trying to do it at that stage, although I'll do it now, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I thought, best leave it to the experts. They know how to chop it up and get it in a mould. Obviously a multi-part figure, and it came back a few weeks later, along with quite a substantial cost of the bill. It's not cheap in any sort of way of imagination to get things moulded and cast externally. You've normally got to sell quite a few to sort of even break even.
So how many was your first order of these? How many did you get?
Well, I put feelers out on the forum boards, and I said, look, how many realistically will want to buy one if they're priced at this amount, and then you can sort of factor in your costings.
Because what do they retail for now, the tree giants?
You got me there.
25?
Yeah, £25.
It's for a big metal. That's very reasonable, I think, in the kind
it's
of.
It's a solid lump.
Like comparing it to the GW range.
Yeah, when you think they're all white metal still.
Yeah.
And the price hasn't gone up. I think possibly they may have been £20. Originally, but that's nearly 10 years. So like 9. So. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a massive increase, especially when you factor in all the other things, like inflation and the price of metals going up and stuff. So that came back. So did the master. That's the good thing. You do get your master back, albeit in little pieces. So, but I carefully and lovingly put them back together like Humpty Dumpty, and painted up the original green, which is what is
So this
there.
is the original.
Yeah.
This is the very first Majestic Bear.
I was
Tree
Majestic Bear
giant.
then, yeah.
Did that then arrive because Majestic Bear was your old website?
Majestic Bear was, I didn't know what to call it at first. Obviously I knew I had to come up with an online sort of store. I didn't know anything about running an online store, websites, design or anything. So again, the community helped me out, and a chap named Klaus, who was username Potenza on the One Ring, who's not active anymore unfortunately, but I still talk to him now and then. He helped me out with the website design, made it very simplistic from my sort of thing, so I could add things to the catalogue, but aside from that I didn't have an awful lot of editing powers on it. It was what it was. And eventually, sort of, as it became more popular, it kind of outgrew itself. But it was a way for people to buy.
I remember that. I remember the Majestic Bear website.
Yeah.
And
Again, the community came up with a name. I said, what are we going to call it? And obviously, I want to try and keep the UK Freddy Bear a little bit sort of looped in. And that's how it came in.
I'd always assumed that had come somewhere out of this guy, from having the
No.
bear.
No, I think the bear was the second model. The birch was the first model on the website. The bear was the second, and that came about because I got involved with a user on One Ring. Well, he was on both actually. He was on Last Alliance as well. And that was a chap named Bilbo of the White Tower. It was Dave Terran. Massively creative hobbyist, who's sadly not with us now. But he was writing a Hobbit. What do you call it?
Source book?
Well, yeah, like a source book, but unofficial.
Supplement.
Yeah, like a journey book sort of thing. Because obviously the Hobbit wasn't with us then, as it is these days. And he just wanted to do something to do with the backstory. So he asked me if I could do a bear for the supplement. And I said, yeah, I could probably have a go. So that's how the Majestic Bear came about.
And it was Bear and Woodsman, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Burly Woodsman.
Because obviously I had to come up with something for
It's
the
not
change
based
into.
on it.
No, because it's not.
Burly Woodsman.
It's just Burly Woodsman.
These days, of course, you'd put absolutely random Burly Woodsman. Not
Perhaps. Yeah.
But he's cool though. He's got a couple of little Mario goblins on there.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I mean, I see the faults in all my sculpts these days, looking back on them, But I was quite pleased with him at the time, and he did all right.
And that was a twin pack, wasn't it? I remember that being on sale.
Yeah. I mean, obviously these days it doesn't do so well because there are official replacements that a lot of people use.
But then a lot of people aren't keen on that other model.
I know Steve Crow's picked one up for his Frostgrave.
Right, yeah.
So, so they people still do use them. So it's quite nice.
Very cool.
So that was the second model. And then the third model, I went back, I think, to the Tree Giants again. And I did the Linden.
It's the fat one.
Yeah, he's kind of all
Tommy
sort
one.
of distorted and twisted.
Yeah. He's the one I haven't got, I think. I think I've got the birch.
Yeah, it's a bit Marmite with a lot of people. Some, people love him, some people hate him, which is fine. Everyone's, got their own preferences.
I think it's cool though. It's just cool how different he is. That's I think what you were going for as well.
That's it.
They should all be.
He's got a different personality and his own little backstory. What he did have at the time on Majestic Bear. I haven't forwarded that on to Shadow and Flame yet, but he was number 2. And the whole reason I was going for these Tree Giants is dates back to that scene from the Two Towers.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted my own Entmoot, and I just thought it's brilliant with all the different trees and characters and stuff. I want to try and get somewhere near that.
Because it's like quick beam as well. There's other named ones, aren't there?
Yeah, but they do alright because, like I say, they're so generic that a lot of people use them in other game systems.
I think they're things
because they're treatment, tree giants.
You want different ones as well. You don't for an N, you don't want the same N 3 times. You want 3 different ones. I think.
That's right. And eventually I'm gonna end up with, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, 7 different ones, and I know people aren't going to want that many for a game because the points cost is that. But it does give people choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say, well, I like that one. And so
I think you'll find a lot of people, a lot of people pick up models they like because they like them, not because they're going to use them.
Yeah.
Like,
And some people just like to collect them.
So the wonderful thing about these is they seem to me very iconic from the films without being from GW.
Yeah, well, they look like they could be in.
Yeah, they look Lord of the Rings.
Which is the kind of the aim I was going for, because obviously having that sort of influence.
Yeah.
But the trick is to make them different enough where they're not infringing on any sort of IP. So.
So then when did the Willow turn up?
Willow.
Because he's fantastic. He's my favourite.
Willow came up after the Mountain Giant.
I
did the Mountain Giant next.
Shall we Mountain Giant?
Yeah,
Stone Giant. Yeah.
Stone Giant, whatever you want to call him.
And this, we were saying, did this come out of Legions of Middle Earth?
I think probably it did, and not for me directly, but again I went back to the forums and I said, look guys, what do you want me to make next, or what would you be interested in buying, because I'm kind of stuck for ideas, and a lot of people said that we want a giant.
It was in the oldie Legions of Middle Earth that we talked about some months ago on the Plantier. That was not a profile, but so what you call it, an entry that there was an implication that would be made.
Ah, right.
And it was in the where's it gone? Monsters of Middle Earth category. Stone Giant, 250 points.
But they never did make a profile, did they?
Never made a profile for it.
No.
But it intrigued people.
But nonetheless, people wanted, so I made a giant.
And then I suppose for this is the first time in a way that you're entirely creating it based on nothing. Like the Ents at least have a visual tie to the films. Yeah,
okay. So inspiration wise, what do you use for a giant? So, but I kind of went with a humanoid kind of thing, throwing a rock. It's very, generic.
Who painted this?
That was another user. What was his one ring username was Haldir PL. Polish chap, Victor. I forget his second name, so I apologise for that. But he painted that up because that was before I got together with Kev, of course. Yeah. And I was quite conscious of the fact that I wasn't an amazing painter, and I'm still not. I think I've improved as everyone does, but I've never sort of had that knack for doing the whole sort of pro painting. I know it's a bit cliche, but that upper echelon level of painting I never really had. So and I knew he'd won a sword for his painting, so I sent him.
You sent him this to paint so that on the website presumably there's a nice painted version of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the picture paints more than 1,000 words. So if you've got nicely painted models on your advertisement, then people are more likely.
And of course, now it's amazing. Like you look at, because they also you remember the old War Master Battle of Five Armies.
Yeah.
That had a stone giant or a storm giant that looked quite similar to that. That kind of big man with a beard, with clothes and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And now, of course, when seeing The Hobbit, it's like it's just a completely different thing. Even the scale of it.
The concept went away from that, didn't it? So.
But it shows you how different. That's as equally valid an interpretation of what's in the book.
Yeah, I think if you've ever seen or read rather the Hobbit.
Graphic novel.
Yeah. They're quite humanoid in that as well.
I think we can manage this.
I think that's as close as I ever got to seeing a visual representation of one.
Yeah, there we go. There they are. So was that some of the inspiration?
I don't know, let's have a look again. It may have been subconsciously. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, you could possibly make a link to that, couldn't you? Yeah.
Cool.
So that was that. And then third one along came
Willow.
Willow.
He's my favourite. I think just because the branches, like the way the depth on it is fantastic.
Yeah,
you really look like you're looking through.
He's very three-dimensional, isn't it? Quite complex. It was. By this time, I'd started chopping up minis myself before I sent them away for casting.
Right.
Because I was experienced enough as a hobbyist to understand how models go together.
Does that save on the cost?
No, I think it just speeds things up a bit. If you do it yourself before, it's one less thing for them to worry about. They can just get on with the moulding and do that. Plus, if you're cutting it up yourself, how it all goes back together again. So that was that. That was difficult.
He's the first one you sold with foliage because you get the little foliage.
Yeah, the problem I have with him commercially, obviously as a one-off, you can make anything you like. You haven't got to worry about what it's made of. But with the willow, obviously, you need those hanging appendages, and it's very hard to replicate them in metal. So I had to come up with a way of trying to get that look, but at the same time, cost effective, and to get the realistic appearance. I thought about plastic, but I thought I haven't really got the means to source that, or so I wasn't really aware of the plastic technology that is around today, and it's a lot more accessible. So we come up with this foliage thing, which is well, for want of a better term, it's aquarium sort of stuff, kind of stuff you find in fish tanks.
Because of that, you still package them up, didn't you? You'd get all the bits, and they all had to be. I remember you saying that you'd get like this each branch, but 50 of them in a bag, and you'd have to separate.
Oh
them
yeah,
all out
when they come from the casters. Spend a good long time sort of going through the bags, because you'll get a bag of branch 10, depending on how many we've ordered. So we've ordered a dozen, so I'll have 12 branch 10s. I'll have a bag with 12 branch 8s, and you empty it all out and then put them all individually into one bag, so you can make one whole tree giant. So the more complex, the figures are, the harder work it is.
Very time consuming,
and that's that all leads into.
But I think it's fair to say those were the tree giants were certainly what most people knew you for.
Yes.
I think they were the.
No, I think that's a fair assumption.
I don't know what kind of numbers you were dealing with, but they were seemed to be the big hit. Presumably because people either didn't like the metal one or the plastic one, which you were saying you are quite fond of, that I don't like.
Yeah, when the plastic one came out, I thought, alright, that's an improvement on the metal one, and they were headed in the right direction with it.
And there's multiple heads, aren't there?
There's 2 heads.
Yeah. So you can get a bit of variety out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I went for that one because that's most like one that's from the film.
Yeah.
That I thought anyway. I modified it a little bit to make it a bit more like one of the movie ones. And I think it's the beach from the films that it's based on. So that's the way.
That's one of the named ones as well, isn't it? Is it Beach Bone?
There is an end called Beach Bone.
Yeah, Quick Beam and Beach, because again they were in here. They were again the ideas that you would have. What are they called? Like named ends. I'm sure it was Quick Beam and Beach Bone.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And also, that ties in as well with, remember White Dwarf? They had an issue with all the different end species, and they each had their own rules, special abilities, which I thought was great. This is right up my alley.
This is going to sell me some tree
No, that's not what I was thinking, but I thought, wow, the fact that they've got their own rules just makes me want to make more of them.
Treebeard, Quickbeam, Beachbone, Ent and Huon. Again in Legion.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean that was very similar to the old Wood Elf in the Wood Elf army, but the Dryads had 3 different aspects.
Yeah.
They had it was something like Oak, which would give them +1 strength and toughness, Willow, which gave them an extra attack, and I can't remember the other one. But yeah, and it gives them more character, doesn't it? Because you can see that end doing that and that end doing that, and it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, but that was 2010. He was the last one that I'd done.
And I think that was some of my first contact I ever had with you.
Really?
Because I don't know if you remember that I traded one with you for Ashrak, who I presume you were missing at the time.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
My first trade, and you were after him, who's now out of production, so you did well at that. You were sorry, coming. But it was Ashrak, something else as well. I want to say something from the Harad army maybe, but for a tree giant.
Yeah, I
remember trading that.
Wasn't it? I can't remember exactly what they were. But that was 2010. I did the little Albert Drury.
Albert Drury.
Yeah,
that's his name.
That's his name, and that's what he's credited in the film.
Is he really?
Yeah, that's Peter Jackson's cameo from the Fellowship. Did you
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's I think I know quite a lot about the movies. That's a rare bit of trivia.
Albert Drury. Well, correct me if I'm wrong.
There you go. That's this will go out afterwards. That's your trivia question for the Palantir.
Really? Everyone will know that.
I don't think they will.
Really?
Well, maybe it's a gap in my knowledge. But
okay.
I think that's a good trivia question.
Right. But yeah, that came about from another supplement idea that Kev Barraclough, who ran The Last Alliance at the time, he came back, he was doing a Bree supplement, and he had the idea that he wanted to commission a figure from one of the characters that could have fitted into Bree, and I thought, wow, that's an obvious one to do, really, so I came up with that, and unfortunately the whole project sort of fell through, and Kev, for reasons of his own, he can go into that, but The Last Alliance sort of collapsed and spiralled into doom, and that was the end of that. But he's a nice little figure. I entered him in the One Ring. Well, back then they had awards in their heyday, and I entered him in the sculpting award category, and he won. So that was good. A good confidence booster. But yeah, he just remains one of those things that sort of never happened. But from there, 2010, like we said earlier, that's when my interest in the whole hobby started to wane. I'm not really sure what, apart from the things we mentioned, there wasn't a trigger for it.
The game was in decline now, and also it was around that time War of the Ring was more popular, so I think a lot of people who liked SPG.
War of the Ring, yeah.
Weren't, GW, as much as they released new models, they were devoting all their time to War of the Ring.
I wanted to get into War of the Ring. I had a huge Isengard army, and I wanted to get into my army with Dead as well. I've got 40 plus footmen, which I converted most of those, and I did some riders with Dead as well, and sort of got into a whole sort of backstory with those. With they got their own captains and banner bearers and stuff, even though there are no profiles. But I never really got into it, and that's why the whole Army of the Dead project stalled, because I tried it. I gave it 3 goes. And I just thought, it's not for me. This is just rolling buckets of dice and then taking off half of my models.
Yeah, I think as much as there's loads of broken combinations that people always blame on it, I also think it just didn't have the magic of SPG. I think people like having every
narrative
model.
To it.
Every guy counts.
Exactly.
You can move every guy, as opposed to you deploy half your guys and then half of them die in the first turn. I don't think that's why people played Lord of the Rings.
It's a shame, but that was just another reason why I became sort of disillusioned with it and kind of went by the wayside. I'd made my own mounted Grima for my Isengard War of the Ring army, and Saruman as well, because at the time there wasn't a mounted Saruman. So he got.
Is that the
Orthanc Saruman, on a.
Escape from Orthanc, it should be. Before someone corrects us, because the Orthanc one's the one who he's holding the staff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, okay.
You know what they're like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The one with grey hair and
Gandalf.
And Gandalf. And it was the Bone Brush took horse.
But they were just done for you.
They're my own. Yeah, I only made one of each.
The green one horse is awesome.
Yeah, that was just a ring wraith
yeah.
with greener stuck on top, and then just the cloaks blended together.
Yeah.
Well, I changed the strapping on the horse's head a little bit as well, and scraped away the hood, but it was quite a nice little model at the time. But it was just one of those things that got shelved. But I had written an article about how I did it, which was on the One Ring. And that was that. And it wasn't until a couple of years, well, 18 months maybe, 2 years tops, when out of the blue I got a private message on my ring from a user called Dead Marsh Spectre.
Who's that?
Some loser. And yeah, he said, oh, I really like that cream of worm you did on a horse, and I was wondering if you could make me one. And I was like, well, I'm not really into it now.
It's like one of those sliding doors moments.
It was, and he goes, well, obviously I'll pay you. And I thought, well, okay, well, it's a bit of money. It's not that difficult. So I did, and I made him one. Obviously I was aware that he had his own blog, the Dead Marshes back then, and looked at some of his stuff and some cracking paint jobs he had. I thought, okay, this would be worthwhile doing, because I know he's going to paint it up really nice, probably better than mine, and it is. So.
And everything else, I mean, the website was still running, you were still selling the tree?
Well, I was still running Majestic Bear Miniatures. Well, I say running, it was ticking over. I hadn't produced anything for a couple of years, but stuff was still going out now and then. And obviously he had his blog, and we were separate entities at that time. But went on from there, and at the time neither of us had the Uruk scout with an axe.
Yeah.
So he said, look, I've been looking for this for ages, I'm going to get one eventually, but in the meantime can you make me one? So I said, yeah, I can, give that a go. So it was another scratch sculpt, and that came out pretty well.
So that was then the first time that you're literally trying to recreate an existing model?
Yeah.
From scratch?
That's right. So that it was a master, and he got the green and took it away, painted it up, and did quite a good job on it.
It's fantastic, yeah, I've seen it. It's
That's on
incredible.
on the website.
Yeah. You wouldn't, I mean, I'm sure there's some way that you would know, but your average pod on the street's not going to know.
Well, I know now because, since then we've got the real ones, and the way I can tell is the size of the axe blade. Mine's slightly smaller than the original.
But if that's the only difference. You yeah, it's not tell my one, because my one would look like a lump of melted plastic.
Just got to know the techniques. And then we did the Mordor Uruk.
Yeah.
Did exactly the same thing with that. Until we got an original one. So those two got done, and I thought, well, actually, this is quite good fun. And he was having a good time. I was having a good time, and then I made myself. I thought, I'm going to make myself something, and I made myself a stone giant,
right?
Which is more rock-like, because at the time, video games in Middle Earth were becoming a bit more popular. I forget which one it's from. It might have been War in the North.
Mm-hmm.
War in the North.
Like the rock golem thing. Is it that?
There's there's a big stone giant that the three characters try and take down.
Uh-huh.
He's got a name. Viewers will know. I can't remember. But that's quite smart. I'm going to have a little go at one of those. So I made one for myself. And Kev was like, I like that, because I got quite pally with him then. He said, I really like that. I was like, yeah. He said, yeah, you're going to sell it to me. I was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And then he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, so I gave it to him. I sold it to Kev, and so he's got the only one. It never got reproduced. And that's the same model that's on our Facebook header. But he did a lovely job. Like I say, he painted it up better than I could ever do. So I'm not too disheartened. But it's from there, and I think that was the model really that sort of people started paying a lot of attention to us as a pair.
Right.
Because obviously
was yours sculpted it, he painted it?
Yeah, because I obviously once he painted it, I tried to avoid posting before he finished it, but then once he'd done it, I put pictures of the green up.
Yeah.
You know, although I think I used Procreate for that one, but anyway, we digress. So everyone thought this is great, and he's like, people are loving this. Why? We could have made this work for ourselves here. Because by that time, I talked him into taking on painting commissions.
Right.
Because he just painted his own stuff. Because he's got a huge collection, got everything just as I have. And I said, you could make some money as well, yeah. And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're a brilliant painter, just start painting for other people, you make a fortune. Oh, I haven't got time for painting for other people, I just like to paint my own stuff. So he did that, and he took a couple on, and he quite enjoyed, you know, the extra money. But again, we were still separate. But that's when the seeds were planted. So the Stone Giant, and the feedback we got from it, was the seed really that got us together, because people like the idea of having an original model made and then lovingly painted up as well, so they have a real showcase, you know, piece of artwork that they can have at the centre of their collection, and that's how Shadow and Flame was born. Cool.
And that is the end of part 1 of this interview.
Okay.
Shocking to us. And we'll leave it there, and in the next part we'll talk about then Shadow and Flame and what you've done since then, and maybe whatever the future holds.
Okay.
But thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. It's been absolutely fascinating, and let us know what you think in the comments below, and which are your favourite of these models, and so on and so forth. Until next time, don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, it's the other way around. Support Your Hobbit host by clicking the links below.
And happy strategy battle game.
And support Your Hobbit hobby.
Support Your Hobbit hobby. And Merry Miniature Modelling.
Merry Miniature Modelling.
Come on, slip that one in.
And actually, because we haven't said it in this video, because we haven't wrapped it up, but in case you just watched this video, go and check out Shadow and Flame's YouTube channel, and like their Facebook page.
Like our Facebook page. Like the website.
And the links will be below. I can do that for this one.
Okay, cool.
Boom.